Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. The Three Musketeers. By Alexandre Dumas. Alexandre Dumas wrote the historical and action-packed novel The Three Musketeers. Before France's 1848 revolution, the novel was published in 1844. The author frequently spoke about many ancient injustices, abuses, and illogicalities, giving the book a political appearance at a time when republicans and monarchists were still engaged in a heated argument. During the French Revolution, the father of novelist Thomas Alexandre Dumas served as a respected general in the Republican Army of France. During his studies on the life of Louis XIV, Dumas came across the novel Memoir de Monsieur d'Artagnan, written by Guillaume de Courty de Sandras, and published in Amsterdam by Pierre Rouge, which he used as the basis for the first few phrases in the book's introduction. The BBC turned Three Musketeers into three separate serials since it was such a success. The Three Musketeers blends romance with action and history, and the book's mastery of romance is still effective today. The narrative begins with a young man named D'Artagnan leaving his family behind in the French province of Gascony in pursuit of pastures more favorable. His father gave him some farewell presents, including a horse, 15 crowns, and a letter introducing him to M. de Treville, the leader of the king's musketeers. The component of a medicine that can heal all wounds was given to him by his mother. D'Artagnan encounters a man who belittles him and his horse in the town of Meung. His sword was broken when he challenged the man to a duel, and the man's slaves thrashed him. The same man also stole his letter of introduction from him. When D'Artagnan sees that the man is meeting Milady, he learns that she has been given orders to spy on the Duke of Buckingham when she returns to England. D'Artagnan bravely traveled to Paris and entered the home of M. de Treville. He encounters a group of musketeers there, including Porthos, a tall, good-looking man, and Aramis, an intelligent man who aspires to the priesthood. He observes that while the musketeers honor King Louis XIII, they despise Cardinal Richelieu and make fun of him whenever they can. They compete for control of the realm, with Richelieu holding the upper hand. When D'Artagnan enters M. de Treville's inner chamber, M. de Treville calls Athos, Porthos, and Aramis into his chamber to chastise them for their recent altercation, not because they were fighting, but rather because they were defeated by the cardinal's guards. Athos, who is wounded, is not present but entered later while attempting to conceal his suffering. Treville explains to D'Artagnan after the three have left the office that he cannot accept him into the Musketeers because he has no military experience, but he has given him the opportunity to enroll at the military academy and be watched over in the future. Treville put D'Artagnan to the test, suspecting that he might be a Richelieu snitch, but discovers that he is open and truthful. After the interview, D'Artagnan looks out the window and sees the nobleman who had insulted him in Meung. In pursuit, he dashes from Treville's home, but on the way, he encounters Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, who all challenge him to a battle in retaliation for his behavior toward them. He lost the nobility in the interim. He fulfills his pledge to Athos, believing that he is about to pass away, only to learn that Porthos and Aramis are his seconds. He is prepared to fight, but the cardinal's guards attack, and D'Artagnan joins the musketeers in a quick battle that they easily win thanks to D'Artagnan's defeat of two of the cardinal's strongest soldiers. The Three Musketeers decide to become friends with D'Artagnan as a result. Before they could meet with the king the following day, one of the cardinal's soldiers attacked D'Artagnan. This causes a riot, which the musketeers once more put an end to. Richelieu is enraged by them and seeks retribution despite the fact that Louis XIII honored them. Following the king's reward, they all eat and drink together before hiring Planchet as a servant for D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan learns more about his friends' homes, their staff, and their lives after that day. But he never learns what their real names are since Athos, Porthos, and Aramis are not their real names. D'Artagnan received favor from M. de Treville and was accepted as a cadet into the guards. On a good day, M. Bonacieux, D'Artagnan's landlord, arrived at his home to inform him that his wife Constance, one of the queen's ladies-in-waiting, had been abducted. D'Artagnan learns that the man he met at Meung is the kidnapper. In order to find out when the Duke of Buckingham, who is in love with the queen, will arrive in Paris and be imprisoned, Constance has been kidnapped by a guy who also happens to be a Cardinal's agent. For the favor, Bonacieux promised D'Artagnan free housing. They see the kidnapper on the street once more, but they are unable to follow him. Later that day, when 4 stewards come to arrest Anne Bonacieux, the Musketeers realize it's a trap and do nothing to stop them. They keep an eye on the house over the next days and see that Cardinal's agents are questioning everyone who entered it. On the day Constance arrived, D'Artagnan stepped in to rescue her and escort her to safety, falling in love with her in the process. D'Artagnan is surprised to find Constance approaching Aramis' house and conversing with a woman as he is contemplating a visit to Aramis. She acknowledges that she does not know Aramis as he approaches and begs him to accompany her to her next stop. When he returned home, he saw that Athos had been taken into custody by guards who thought he was D'Artagnan. In his search to locate Porthos and Aramis, he runs into Constance once more, but this time she is accompanied by a strange musketeer, who just so happens to be George Villiers, the Duke of Buckingham. After that, Constance led Buckingham to a private audience with the Queen when he professed his love for her. In exchange, the Queen presents the King with a tiny rose box holding 2 gifts of diamond stones. When Bonacieux is imprisoned, the Cardinal's spies threaten him so that he will reveal to them all he knows about his wife's behavior and how Richelieu tricked him into being a spy. Athos is receiving the same care, but he made no disclosures. The guy who insulted D'Artagnan and kidnapped Constance was identified during the interrogation as Comte de Rochefort, the Cardinal's most dependable spy. Later, Milady in England received a letter through a messenger ordering her to defraud the Duke of Buckingham of 2 diamond stones. Athos has been detained, and D'Artagnan has notified Tréville of this. Tréville travels to the king right away and secures Athos' release, even without the Cardinal's approval. Richelieu informed the king that the Duke of Buckingham has been in Paris for the past 5 days in Tréville's absence. Richelieu reassures the king that his queen has not disgraced him but is instead plotting with France's enemies. The king was furious, believing that his queen had abandoned him. The king is now at ease because the thought of infidelity worried him more than the fear of treason because he believed it could never happen. Richelieu begs the king to have the queen's court in person searched to obtain some incriminating information. And the search reveals a plot with the King of Spain, the Queen's brother. Richelieu advises him to urge the Queen to utilize the diamond stones he gave her for her birthday. He is quite thrilled and has chosen to throw a celebration in honor of the Queen. Constance, who overheard them, suggests that they send her husband to Buckingham to retrieve the stones when Louis tells the Queen about the party and the diamond stone, which almost sends her into a panic. She arrived to her husband and saw that he was now supporting Richelieu, so she knew she couldn't trust him with the massage. D'Artagnan claimed he would deliver the message after overhearing the dialogue from his apartment. Constance agrees to send him, giving him the cash her husband had gotten from the cardinal, but they overhear their conversation as he plots to betray both the Queen and Constance. Knowing well that he must depart immediately for London, D'Artagnan goes to Tréville and asks for a 2-week leave. Although he concurs, Tréville urges that he travel with his other buddies. The 3 musketeers are sidetracked by various mishaps as the 4 friends go to the coast. The young Gascon steals a travel document from the Comte de Vardes when they arrive in Calais, crosses the channel, and finds Buckingham. D'Artagnan gave the Duke the news at his palace, where Buckingham noticed that 2 of the diamond stones were missing. In order to stop the diamonds from leaving England, he immediately seals all English ports. He then orders his goldsmith to make duplicates, which he then gives to D'Artagnan so that he can deliver them to the Queen. He also provides him with swift horses as gifts for him and his friends, and he plots a route that will safely transport him to Paris. When the Queen makes an appearance at the party sans the 2 diamonds, Richelieu is delighted that his plan is working. But once the Queen has finished getting dressed, she returns bearing 12 diamond stones, thwarting Richelieu's plan to catch her by handing the king the 2 gems that Buckingham had been given but Milady had stolen for himself. Constance led D'Artagnan through the Hôtel de Ville as a thank you for his assistance, and the Queen gave him a priceless ring and permitted him to kiss her hand in her bedchamber. Constance didn't feel the same way about him as he did about her, but she could in the future. Upon returning home, he finds a letter from Constance asking him to meet her that evening at a secret location. Although he is overjoyed, Tréville cautions him to be on the lookout for betrayal and advises him to leave the city in order to learn the fates of his friends. D'Artagnan insists on meeting Constance first, but his servant Planchet informed him that the landlord had a cunning expression on his face when he warned D'Artagnan of a potential trap when the 2 were speaking that morning. They both headed off to see Constance, but D'Artagnan dropped off Planchet at a café first. He arrives at the destination by himself but only discovers a looted room. He concludes from questioning a neighbor that Constance was once more kidnapped by Rochefort with the assistance of her dishonest husband. He set out the next morning to find out what had happened to his buddies. He returns to the café where he left Porthos and discovers him healing from a wound sustained in a struggle. He had amassed a sizable bill while he was recuperating, but he was unable to pay it since he had lost all of his money at gambling and because his lover, the middle-aged wife of a lawyer named Coquenard, was unable to lend him any cash. As a result of stealing wine and food, his servant Mousqueton has been feeding both his master and himself. In his place, D'Artagnan settles the bill and sets out to find Aramis. He is still recuperating from his wounds and is in earnest conversation with two clerics who are instructing him on how to become a priest when he is found in the lodge where he was last seen. Aramis immediately recovers and gives up the idea of leaving the Musketeers for the priesthood after D'Artagnan delivered him a letter from his girlfriend, the Duchesse de Chevreuse, following their conversation with the clerics. After that, D'Artagnan continues his quest for Athos, who has barricaded himself in the residence where they were both attacked. Athos was thrashing the publican out of house and home when the lodging's owner recognized his error and asked him to leave. Athos refused. D'Artagnan persuades him to emerge, at which point Athos tells the tragic tale of his unhappy marriage. As a young man, he had married a lovely girl, the sister of a curate, but had later found out on a fateful day that she bore the mark of the royal executioner on her shoulder. After learning that his wife was a criminal, he hangs her from a tree but she manages to get away. The four buddies gamble or sell the splendid horses Buckingham gave them on their journey back to Paris. They learn upon returning to Paris that D'Artagnan will soon join them as one of the king's musketeers and that the king is preparing for war against La Rochelle. To adequately equip oneself, keep in mind the D'Artagnan diamond. They want money, his present from the queen. When they went looking for money, Porthos first made his lover envious by playing with a stunning stranger in church. D'Artagnan, who was spying on him from behind a pillar, recognized the woman as Milady and tracked her down. She is conversing with the Comte de Vardes, whose travel authorization he had stolen, and is the sister-in-law of Lord Winter, Baron of Sheffield, the Englishman who played a game of chance with Athos and won his and D'Artagnan's horses. Following several tense exchanges, D'Artagnan challenges Lord Winter to a duel that night. The four friends defeat Lord Winter and his English allies during the combat, with Athos murdering his opponent after forcing him to reveal his true identity. Lord Winter offers D'Artagnan an invitation to supper at Lady Clark's house after D'Artagnan had the chance to assassinate him but chooses to spare him, Milady. She greets him courteously, but he notices that when she thinks he is not watching, her countenance becomes menacing. He visits every day, but he didn't notice Lady Clark's maid, known as Kitty, giving him adoring looks. While this is happening, Porthos attends dinner at the home of his sweetheart and her husband. He is fed a meager meal and she makes a vow to equip him for the conflicts by securing discounted prices on the supplies he needs in addition to giving him 800 livres. D'Artagnan keeps going to see Lady Clark every day and develops feelings for her, but one day Kitty, a Milady, warns him of her hatred for him and her desire for retribution for an unspecified cause. Kitty and D'Artagnan are in love, and D'Artagnan tries to use Kitty's affection to win Milady. However, after overhearing their talk, he decides to shift his strategy and utilize closeness, which works on Kitty, to exact his own retribution. After interfering with Milady's letters of love to the Comte de Vardes multiple times, he devises a plan to exact revenge by posing as the Count in Milady's bedroom. Aramis has received a sizable sum of money from his girlfriend in Tours while D'Artagnan thwarts his evening's plans, and Porthos has received nothing from Madame Coquenard other than D'Artagnan's old horse and a useless mule for his servant. He returns both, and chastises his lover. That evening, D'Artagnan executes his plan and makes love to Milady in her pitch-black bedroom while posing as the Comte de Vardes. She handed him a priceless ring as a token of her love and expressed her happiness, but she also vowed to exact revenge on D'Artagnan for trying to kill her lover. Kitty is devastated, but she bounces back when she gives D'Artagnan a note from her mistress to de Vardes asking for another meeting, and D'Artagnan fabricates a response telling her she must wait till he visits his other lovers. Then, when D'Artagnan asked Athos for counsel, He advised him to stay away from Milady. He recognizes the ring as a family heirloom he gave his wife when D'Artagnan reveals to him that Milady gave it to him. Milady was avoided by D'Artagnan for 2 days, but on the 3rd day, Milady called for him. She gave him a promise of her love when he got there if he would kill the Count to get back at her. D'Artagnan nods his head in agreement while declaring to himself that this is the most perilous woman he has ever met. After making love to Milady that night, he tells her about his previous identity as Comte de Vardes. Milady was furious and attempted to get out of bed, but D'Artagnan grabbed her nightgown and tore it, exposing the mark the royal executioner had left on her shoulder. Milady wants to assassinate D'Artagnan using all available means now that he is aware of her secret. She grabs a knife and prepares to attack him, but he defends himself and runs away. Athos is subsequently informed of the incident, and he is informed that Milady is indeed the criminal wife whom Athos hanged. Both of them made the decision to sell the ring she gave D'Artagnan in order to prepare for the impending war, and Aramis assisted Kitty in leaving Paris in order to serve as his lover's handmaid. The 4 buddies are now prepared for battle with all of their equipment, but D'Artagnan gets 2 messages beforehand. One came from Constance, who said he might see her if he showed up at a certain place at a certain time. He complied and did see her, while the other came directly from Cardinal Richelieu. Richelieu is gracious to D'Artagnan when he pays the cardinal a visit and gives him a position in his own guard. D'Artagnan declines the proposition with grace. If he continues on his current path, Richelieu forewarns him that he will no longer be under his protection. Then, D'Artagnan departs for La Rochelle with the guards, leaving his 3 companions behind until the Musketeers are called up for duty. 2 assassins are sent to kill D'Artagnan shortly after he arrives in La Rochelle, but he manages to escape and arrest one of them, named Brisemont, and discovers that Milady had hired them. By giving the man a second chance and earning his trust, D'Artagnan gains knowledge that Milady also intends to abduct Constance, who is hidden in a convent. D'Artagnan longs for his friends while the siege drags on without any progress. One day he gets a letter containing a bottle of wine addressed to his friends. As the party is about to begin with gunfire heralding the entrance of the king, he invites a few of his fellow guardsmen to join him for a drink. Planchet and Brisemont were given the responsibility for making the arrangements. When D'Artagnan meets up with his buddies, they inform him that no wine was sent. When everyone arrives back at the party, they discover Brisemont dead from poison wine. Milady is the only person to blame. The 3 musketeers run across Richelieu one night while out partying and returning home. He requests their assistance in getting to the hotel where they had been drinking since he has to meet Milady, who had been led there by Rochefort. The 3 musketeers hear the dialogue while they are waiting below. To warn Buckingham that the cardinal has enough knowledge to bring permanent disgrace on the queen if he pursues the war against France, Richelieu wishes to dispatch Milady to England. If the plot doesn't work, Milady promises to kill Buckingham and requests Richelieu's written approval before doing so. She also requests the cardinal's assistance in seeking revenge in order to locate Constance's hiding place, capture D'Artagnan, and have him put to death. Athos hurriedly departs the lodging, claiming to ride ahead as an advance guard on the way back to camp, but when the cardinal has left, turns around and enters the accommodation. Milady is confronted by him, and he threatens to shoot her if she does not give him the letter Richelieu sent her. He also tells Milady that if she tries to harm D'Artagnan, he would murder her. The 4 wish to talk in private when the 3 musketeers return to D'Artagnan, but they are unable to find a private location. Together with some other soldiers, they wager that they can repel the enemy for at least an hour. When they get at the fortress, they discover dead warriors, remove their weapons, and then sit down to eat. They successfully repel 2 enemy assaults while also notifying D'Artagnan of Milady's chat with Richelieu and ensuing encounter with Athos. They consider their alternatives and decide to send 2 of their servants, Bazin and Planchet, to inform Lord Winter and the Queen of the Cardinal's and Milady's murder plot trap. They then quietly make their way back to camp amid applause from thousands of French soldiers. Despite his displeasure with the 4 friends, Richelieu elevated D'Artagnan to corps musketeers for his valor. D'Artagnan also helped finance the travels of the 2 servants by selling the diamond he received from the Queen. After Planchet had conveyed the word, Milady arrived in England. Lord Winter, who now knew that her marriage to his brother was illegal because she already had a husband in France, ordered her imprisonment. Milady was informed of these facts by Winter, who also let her know that she would be detained for 3 weeks without being allowed to speak to anyone, put into exile, and would never again visit England or Europe. John Felton, a devoted lieutenant and a faithful Puritan who is said to be impervious to Milady trickery, takes care of her when he is away. Back at the front lines, the fighting never stops. Although Aramis had just received a letter from his sweetheart alerting them that Constance was hiding in a convent in Béthune, Richelieu tries unsuccessfully to get information from the 4 friends and their servant one day as they are lounging on the beach. Milady is making every effort to escape captivity in England. She works on the young officer who is her prison guard every day, persuading him that she is a Puritan being persecuted for her beliefs by Lord Winter's depravity and a Buckingham, who stole her virginity after drugging her and then marked her so no one would believe her account. She persuades Lieutenant Felton to free her and murder Buckingham because he buys into her story. Felton is sent away by Lord Winter, but that evening he comes back and unlocks Milady's prison's window bars, allowing her to escape. After killing Buckingham, he is captured and realizes that everything was a lie when he sees her ship off in the distance. The 4 friends accompany the Musketeers who the king asks to escort him back to Paris after growing weary of the battle at La Rochelle. Knowing that Milady is en route to Béthune to kill Constance, they promptly left to rescue her after transporting the king safely back to Paris. D'Artagnan again sees Rochefort on the road but is unable to pursue him. Milady will soon arrive to the Béthune convent. Knowing that the Mother Superior does not support the cardinals, she tries to win her over by pretending that Richelieu is persecuting her. As a result, the Mother Superior introduces her to another victim, who she later learns to be Constance. She has no trouble persuading Constance that she is D'Artagnan's friend, and Constance informs her that D'Artagnan would be arriving that day. The Comte de Rochefort soon appeared at the convent while riding a horse. He proceeds to tell the cardinal what Milady has told him, and Milady gets ready for Rochefort's valet to take her from the convent to Armentières. Constance agreed to accompany her after she encouraged her to, but before they could proceed, they heard the sound of the Musketeers' horses. Constance is hesitant to flee with Milady through the convent garden, so Milady makes her preparations on her own. She poisons her before sneaking out the back door. Constance's condition is hopeless when D'Artagnan and his friends get there. She afterwards passed away. When Lord Winter finally shows up, the 4 friends and he leave the convent to look for Milady. They discover a note that was left by Rochefort's valet claiming that Milady had left for Armentières and that Athos was prepared to complete the mission alone because she was his wife. Athos dispatched 4 valets to Armentières with instructions to travel an alternate path in order to track down Milady while he visited a strange guy wearing a red cloak. The next day, the 5 men travel to Armentières with the weird man in red. They encounter Milady in a remote home, where they tried her and described all of her crimes. The man in red is the assassin of Lille. His brother is a young priest who was lured by Milady into robbing a church and was later caught stealing. However, he escaped with Milady to de la Fere's estate where he pretended to be her brother. After Milady wed Athos, he returned to find his brother serving a prison sentence in place of him. After turning himself in, he killed himself. Milady was captured by the slayer, who marked her in the same way that he had to mark his own brother. Milady is given the death penalty in light of all the accusatory evidence. She was taken to the shore of the River Lys in Switzerland by the murderer after being pardoned by her accusers, where she was beheaded and the body's remnants were thrown into the water. When Rochefort gets back to the La Rochelle battlefront, he arrests D'Artagnan and takes him before the cardinal. Richelieu charged him with treason without being aware of Milady's passing. D'Artagnan tells him about the incident and then shows him the note Athos stole from Milady as proof that the cardinal had authorized his actions. Richelieu removes the allegations against the young Gascon and presents him with a blank lieutenant's commission in the Musketeers. By this time, he had grown to admire the young Gascon. All of D'Artagnan's pals are presented with it, but they all reject it for various reasons. Athos for not intending to advance, Porthos for wanting to wed his newly bereaved sweetheart, and Aramis for wanting to renounce the Musketeers and become a priest. D'Artagnan takes the position and performs his duties honorably for many years. He battles Rochefort 3 times, defeating him each time, and the two go on to become friends. La Rochelle is defeated after a year-long conflict. D'Artagnan, the novel's main character, is a young man from Gascony who relocates to Paris in search of a better life. He is courageous, honorable, aspirational, cunning, and smart. Love and loyalty rule him, but he occasionally engages in illicit behavior. Athos, he is like a father figure to D'Artagnan. He is the oldest friend and is still a youthful man. Athos is unique in all respects: intelligence, looks, bravery, and swordsmanship, yet no one can figure out why he is depressed. Aramis, a young musketeer, is a lovely young man who is quiet and rather absorbed in himself. He intends to quit being a musketeer and train to be a priest. He is trying to keep his pals from finding out who his lover is. Porthos, the third musketeer, is obnoxious, arrogant, and full of himself. Although he enjoys dressing magnificently and is very egotistical, he is a brave friend and a brave combatant. Madame Coquenard, the wife of a successful lawyer, is his mistress. Lady Clark is an operative for the cardinal and is a stunning, frightening, and cruel woman. Although D'Artagnan was obsessed with her, she eventually turned into the four companions' worst enemy. Constance is the queen's lady-in-waiting and the wife of Bonacieux. She has the queen's loyalty. Although she was in love with D'Artagnan, she did not confess her love to him before she passed away. Bonacieux is the owner of D'Artagnan's and the husband of Constance. He initially seeks assistance from D'Artagnan but later turns into the cardinal's agent. Monsieur de Treville, the captain of the king's musketeers. He is a close friend of the king and a gentleman of dignity and distinction. He serves as the musketeers' collective parent. He competes with the cardinal for the king's favor and influence. King Louis was France's monarch. Louis is less of a ruler than his counselors, particularly Cardinal Richelieu, the most influential man in France, who is in charge of Louis. Those who have learned to manage him are effective around him despite his short temper and general lack of relevance. Cardinal Richelieu is the king's most important advisor and a significant figure in France. Although he is an effective leader of the state, he wants to be at the center of all decisions. Richelieu aids in preserving the king's standing and authority. The Queen, Queen of France. She is Spanish and has conflicting allegiances to the Duke of Buckingham, the French monarchy, and her Spanish heritage. The king does not have faith in her. The Duke of Buckingham, George Villiers, is an Englishman who is good-looking, courageous, successful, and powerful. The French queen is his true love. He was continuously trying to win over the queen. Lord Winter is the brother-in-law of Lady Clark. He is a gentleman who appreciates fashion. He is not very interesting, but he meets expectations when they are required. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.